167 days in space, over 38 hours performing spacewalks, traveling more than 6 million miles, making hundreds of orbits about the Earth. But how did I get there? This is the making of an ordinary spaceman. I'm Clayton C. Anderson, and these are my stories. Back to 67% of rated performance, reducing the stress on the shuttle as it breaks through the sound barrier.
Teachers are a huge part of me, Astro Clay. And in the making of an Ordinary Spaceman podcast, I bring Chuck Niemeyer, a high school biology teacher and coach at Ashland-Greenwood, where we talk about the importance of community and responsibility.
This episode of our podcast brings in a guest that I've known for far too long, more than likely. But he's been influential in my life. He's been influential in my education, in the community. And let's welcome Chuck Niemeyer. It's great to have you here, sir.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. And I'm going to start with something maybe that's near and dear to my heart. I don't know about yours. But you spent a lot of time in the broadcast booth at the Ashland-Greenwood Memorial Stadium with football games where some of the Anderson kids were participants, but the biggest participant perhaps from the Anderson family was the dude running the clock, my father, Jack. Yeah. So what are your thoughts, what recollections, what thoughts, what memories do you have about that entire environment, not just the game, the players, but anything that you think is important in my upbringing, in my building of the Ordinary Spaceman?
Well, your dad was an interesting man, unbelievable man. But, you know, my contact with him primarily was at football games, you know, right. The high school football games. And the thing that was interesting about him when you were playing or when Kirby was playing was he would get so nervous. And he would sit next to me and he would just vibrate, as the game was going on. But the other thing, we have a very primitive setup. Yeah.
It was Ashland after all, right?
Well, yeah. And, so there was a problem. All the years that he and I were together in that booth, the problem was there was a short between his system and mine. And what would happen is that if we accidentally touched each other, we would both get a shock. And the thing I always worried about was, your dad had problems with his heart, back at that time frame. Right. And so I always thought, one of these days he's going to get a shock and he's going to crap out right on me, And I thought, what do I do? Do I continue broadcasting the game or do I say, okay, hey, it's in between plays. Let's do a little heart massage here and then, we'll pick it up later again. The other problem we had with that booth that I remember your dad and I was that it was a very, vertically was very, very short. And it had a shingled roof on it that was probably about 5 foot up there, and that was it. And the nails were sticking out through that thing. So if you got too excited, you could actually, impale your head, on that thing. But anyway, he was a good man. He was really a good man, and he was really interested in sports and really interested in his kids. And
did he maintain? I know he was nervous, but did he maintain his composure? I became a spotter for my son Cole when he played at Clear Falls High School down in Texas, and I was a spotter for my best friend who was the announcer, right? So I was not running the clock, but I was in a position similar to my dad, and I know exactly now how nervous he got. But I was more vocal in the fact that the guy doing the announcing had to be very quick on the switch. To make sure that when Cole's father said, "What the," that it didn't go out over the public address system.
It was always interesting, with your dad in that respect, because sometimes during the games, he forgot he was the clock man. So, things. So I had to remember to not announce over there, Jack, get back to the blank clock. But, those were interesting times, and it's a tough situation, for a father watching a game. Yeah. I have trouble watching games, myself And when I don't have anybody there, I get really nervous. Volleyball is a sport I have a horrible time. It drives me nuts. Absolutely drives me nuts. It's. But anyway.
Well, let me expand this a little bit to go. So you knew my dad, you knew my mom, and you taught all three of the Anderson kids, Lori, Kirby, and Clay. So tell me what you think about that family unit in terms of what did you notice that made it special or made it that was important in terms of our performance in school as students, as athletes, as citizens in Ashland?
Well, all three kids, you were all good kids. I mean, academically, and even I never heard any scuttlebutt about any of you that feeding back. I remember one of your mutual friends, that got involved in some streaking at one time through high school, yeah. And I never heard that about you. So I don't know if you did that as well or not. But
I couldn't afford the legal fees.
Well, the interesting thing about your family, and some of this you're going to probably not find amusing. No, it was really a good family, really a good family. But the thing I always found interesting, especially concerning yourself, was that, you had to overcome some obstacles because, you had a sister who was a lot prettier than you were, handsome. So, and then you had a younger brother who was a better athlete than you were. So
I knew that was coming in. I knew that would be in the conversation.
So where did that leave you in this whole scenario? So you have to make a choice. What can't become? I'm not, going to become the handsome, dude, and my athletic ability is determined by what my younger brother told me I was. Isn't that about correct?
Yeah, I was good at baling hay.
Yeah,
I was.
But he always, every time I ran into Kirby, he always reminded me about his superior athleticism, and which I always found interesting because he was a very pigeon-toed hurdler.
Yes,
which I never could understand how he could hurdle that well, because he had to jump so much higher to get his toes over them. But anyway, the family's always been very, very heavily involved in the community. Activities. Your dad, your mom was, she was a very, very special educator, and so it's always, when I came here, I was, in my late 20s, or I can't even remember, it's so long ago. But anyway, you had people that you looked up to in the community, and they're all gone now, which is sort of sad because I'm sitting here looking around. I need somebody to guide me through the rest of my life. Fortunately, it falls on my wife, Shirley. I think she's
Stay away from my Uncle Jim, will you?
Well, he and I are on the city council together, so he sits to my right. And
he says, and this is a quote, he's a hoot.
Well, humor is good for me, so a lot of times it loosens up the council meetings, a little bit. But yeah. So the family, in total, has always been a very, very strong part of the community, and which is reflected in the, Jack Anderson, ballpark down there, which is an indication of the time that your dad put into the community and its growth and development. So,
yeah, that's baseball and sports was very important to Dad, and the community was very important to Dad.
Oh yeah.
And when they first reached out to me about the ballpark, they wanted to name it after me. And I said, no, that's the wrong answer, right? And I talked with Kirby and I talked with Lori, and I said, here's what I want to tell them back. And, of course, they both agreed, and I'm hugely proud of the Jack Anderson ballpark. And whenever I read in the Gazette or I hear on social media and they call it the Jack, I can just see my dad, busting his buttons of his shirt and just standing there, how proud he would be to see that signage down there that says the Jack Anderson ballpark. So I'm grateful for that, and I just wish he would have been around for this astronaut thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, he probably was, but
just in a different
little closer than what you thought, maybe. But what is happening, from a city council standpoint now is we've been addressing the issue of trying to do something better as far as an entrance. That does something that explains something other than all of a sudden you've Okay, we're at a ballpark.
Yeah.
You know, why are we at the ballpark? You know,
Right.
and what's important about this ballpark? So it's getting there. But
Well, we appreciate everything you're doing, and I know Dad appreciates it too. When he started the Pee Wee tournament years and years ago, that was one of the biggest events in southeast Nebraska for years.
Yeah.
I remember some of the kids that were playing as 8, 9, and 10-year-olds in that tournament who would then go on to high school success and in multiple sports, but it's just a really great legacy for him.
I think, you know, it would have been interesting to, you know, somebody like your dad that was so involved with youth, and, you know, the school system has established the unified track meets. I don't know if you're familiar.
Oh,
with,
yes,
you know,
yes.
so we're having one next week, next Wednesday. But, you know, such special you know, events that are occurring, and you know, so much is occurring from the, you know, the youth and things like that in our community, which is really good. I think your uncle was probably upset that they called it the Jack Anderson, you know, ballpark complex. I think he would have preferred just Jay Anderson. So, you know, he could. So we're going to have to be careful when we build this entry in there that, you know, we put no I's and M's in that first name up there. You know?
Well, he'll probably be down there sitting in a chair watching it go up. So.
Oh yeah, more than likely. You know, just. Well,
let me change the tact a little bit here. And you were a high school biology teacher at Ashland-Greenwood High School for how
Right.
long?
8 years.
8 years. So during that time, I know you had Lori, and then you had me and Kirby after that. And so I want to ask you here, as a biology teacher, what are your memories of the student body in general, or the Anderson kids, in terms of their tendencies, their any issues they brought to the table? And did you, Chuck Niemeyer, see their futures in any way?
It's always hard to tell with futures, you know, but I'll talk about your sister first of all. She was always pretty shy compared to the, you know, so I think, you know, whether it's the preponderance of the egos of the male members of the family, I don't know, but, you know, she was fairly shy, but always a good student, always a very, very good student. And students, you know, were, you know, back then it was a very cohesive, you know, grouping of students. And, you know, we went through the merger of the Greenwood schools into the Ashland schools. So, you know, there was a lot of, you know, a little controversy when that occurred, but, you know, that all went pretty smoothly. But, you know, we had good kids, you know, and we always have, and we still have good kids in Ashland. And I think a lot of it's a rural, you know, background, but it's also a lot of, you know, faith parents have in their children. The only negative I find, you know, these days is, you know, I look at rosters and stuff like that. I don't know any of these people, you know, because, you know, the students that I had kids, and now, you know, then their kids are, you know, so it's, you know, it's been so long.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've come back to speak at Ashland several times, right? And I remember being in front of the student body, and I'd ask the kids to tell me their name, because I said, I might have gone to school with your mom or dad or your grandpa or your granddad.
It's a So you ought to have taught in that time frame, you know, where you're looking at it and, you know, seeing this happen. So, yeah, it's but it's always, you know, Ashland has always had good kids. You know, it's always interesting. You know, academically, the kids in Ashland have done well. The success of graduates coming out of Ashland has been really, really phenomenal.
Why do you suppose that is?
Well, it had to be
because the biology teacher.
Oh, well, our good friend Dave Anderson, Dave Lutton, rather. I always remind him that if it wasn't for me, he probably would have never had children. And for yourself as well, having taken biology classes from me, you know, it's.
I think I got a C, though.
So, anyway.
Well, you're no longer a teacher, but you're still an Ashland resident, right?
Yep.
Do you miss teaching, and why? And do you have any regrets about leaving teaching?
I think the thing I miss, I always thought teaching kept me young, because I interacted with kids all the time, and so you tend to relate with, you know, who you work with. The problem was when I quit teaching, I had to work with adults, which wasn't near as much fun, you know, because, you know, and, you know, the thing I always found with kids, they were always extremely honest with you. You know, you just, you know, you ask a kid something, he pretty well tell you, you know, whereas, you know, you ask an adult something, or not all adults, there's some good ones out there, you know, yourself included, you know, and Jill, what a phenomenal adult she turned out to be, but you know, you ask an adult, you know, something, you can sort of see in their mind, why is he asking this? What does he want from me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and with kids, generally, just, you know, you just wanted the truth. What's happening in your life? What are you doing? You know, this type of thing. You know, and talking with some of the kids you had, former kids earlier,
Mm-hmm.
Richard and Tom, you know, kids with so much talent and capabilities. It's just so, you know, so good to see.
Oh, yeah.
But if, you know, and I think I left teaching because I was in my, mid-30s, around there, somewhere around there. And anyway, all of a sudden I look around and I am no longer a young faculty member anymore. I am now like the senior staff member here. And I see everybody, and, you know, it was maybe not the correct decision, but I look around and somebody has quit teaching and they've gone into another profession. And, you know, I thought, my gosh, why am I not doing that? And so I thought about it for a length of time, and I thought about several options. And, you know, it's sort of interesting as to what you can do with what you have for background and experience. And there were some options, but a lot of them, you know, weren't appealing to me. And I really thought about going back to college, school, and trying to become an engineer. Mm-hmm. But then I thought, you know, my math skills are way too weak for that, you know. So
you could have had Hurrdat tutor you.
Yeah, well, my only skill level at that point, I could spell engineer. I think there are 2 E's, no 3 E's in it, right?
I don't know. I think it's just NG something.
Just whatever. You know, so, but yeah, they never had an area that I would have fit as an engineer, so I had to, you know, find something else to do. So, interestingly enough, I found I was halfway successful talking to people. Mm-hmm. So I went into sales, and which worked out well.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, no, it's done well for me. So,
well, as an educator who educated me in part on June the 8th in 2007, what were you doing?
I think I was probably at a local bar in Ashland. I think that was when you were going up for the first time.
Yes, it was.
And so they were having a big group of. And it was not that everybody was there to drink just in case he didn't go or something else happened to him, but they had asked me to come down because you had a lot of classmates in that there that were going to be there and wanted to, you know, be cohesively there. But the thing that sort of took me back and actually left me probably one of the first times in my life without any words. They asked me to give a prayer prior to the launch.
Really?
And that, you know, sometimes, like I said, I very seldom am I lost for words, but I was at a loss for words as to, you know, say something that would be, you know, impactful. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that was interesting out of that whole thing, you know, is a very, you know, I kept the tears back, everything else. And there were a lot of tears in that room at that time. But anyway, you know, everything was working great. The launch was great. Everybody was, you know, really exuberant about it. But what I found interesting was the next week in the paper was a sort of an interesting article. Somebody had written in and said, you know, I thought it was horrible that he was giving a prayer in a bar. And I thought to myself, you know, afterwards, I said, what's the best place in the world to give a prayer is in a bar. So anyway.
I want to save all you souls.
Yeah, but it had nothing to do with, you know, the person would have had to have been there, I think, to understand what was happening and,
right.
You know, the impact and the rationale for the prayer. But evidently it worked because here we are today talking.
Yeah, God bless. I mean, it's interesting to me. You know, I've talked with other folks on the podcast about that day and about that actual event in Ashland. And it warms my heart to no end to know that for that day, for those moments, I had that support.
Oh, yeah.
You know, at the time, my mom was battling lung cancer. You know, my dad had passed away back in 1984. And my family, my wife, my kids, my sister and brother and uncle were in Florida for the launch. And Mom was too. And Mom was fighting for her life to be able to be there. But to have everyone back in Ashland supporting me like that is one of the reasons I'm so enamored and supportive of Ashland and the people of Nebraska.
You couldn't believe the volume in that bar when that thing was lifting. It got very quiet.
Sure.
For that short time frame up until that first separation. And once that was, I think is maybe in our minds is probably the most critical part of the thing was that first separation. But, the cheers, once they, announced that the launch was successful, they were screaming and hollering.
And the bar tab went
went up
astronomically.
Yeah, and fortunately, I got out of there before they billed me for it. So
that was part of the prayer deal, right?
Yes, it was.
Hey, give the tab to the guy who gave the prayer.
Yeah, no, he's moonlighting as a pastor. What does he have for money? Nothing. So
absolutely. So your responsibilities as an educator in a school are pretty well defined, right?
Yeah.
But what are those responsibilities in your mind as an educator in a small town environment outside of that school, and what are the advantages and disadvantages to that situation?
Well, the advantages were, wherever you went, you knew everybody.
Sure.
And the kids, and you could relate to them at any given time when you saw them, and you were interested in their activities. You were interested in what happened in the community. The negative would be you could never really get away from it. So you were always, and not, you weren't, it wasn't as difficult as what you think. You just had to be yourself, but it's just that you were constantly, somebody, whether I was giving a prayer in a bar, somebody is watching you, and making a value judgment about who you are or what you are, those type of things. So, but small towns are phenomenal. And my first town I taught in was Little Prague, Nebraska, up there, and phenomenal little school up there. Has been gone for quite a few years, but what was so important there, and it was always important in Ashland, was the interest by the parents in their children and in their education. And that was when you go do a parent-teachers conference, and you had 90-some% attendance, and even parents who were struggling in life were still there for their kids, which was always good. So small towns, and Ashland is changing a lot. It's not the small town it was. When you were going through school here, I keep thinking about the high school, with basically was a gymnasium with about 5 classrooms around it, 6 classrooms around it, and students were, going back and forth, between the 2 buildings. Used to lose more kids that way, because they found if they, because they ran a bus back and forth. So, a kid would come 10, 15 minutes late in your class. Sorry, Chuck, I missed the bus, so I had to walk over, and I don't know if you, Jim Yates, remember?
Jim,
absolutely. And Jim had found, for some reason or another, he got lost. I think it was like the 3rd period or whatever in the morning, whatever period it was, just before lunch. And he was supposed to be coming from the other building over. Well, he was supposed to be in study hall, and somehow or another, the record never got transferred that he was supposed to be in study hall. So Jim used to walk over from the other school, and he lived, a block from the high school there. So he'd go home at lunch. And so he, back then it was a very restrictive campus. So, he has about 2 hours where he's, taking a nap. Sometimes when he was a senior, he used to go out and play golf. And then,
oh man!
So
I did not know that.
But I mean, here's another great kid, but he's just the system just sort of
working the system, taking advantage.
Well, they just sort of lost him for a little while. So I think it was about the end of the first semester that we found Jim again, returned him to a normal high school existence. But
that's good. I had not heard that story.
No, he played the system for a while.
Now, part of the reason that folks were getting lost on the bus was because we had the bus driver, Paul.
Yeah.
And when we used to go over for shop class, right, we would oftentimes, not me, of course, but folks with the name of Martai.
Yeah.
Or others would convince Paul to take the bus and run the quarter mile on Highway 66 north of town and see how fast he could get the bus going.
That I never heard of.
Yeah.
I thought maybe he took you all to the Frosty.
No, it was basically us hanging on going, go Paul, go Paul, go Paul. And he'd crank it up as fast as that bus would go over a quarter mile, and then he'd slow her down, and he'd turn around, and we'd come on back to shop class.
That's interesting. It was an interesting setup. But, now you go up to the school system, and a phenomenal building, and, the new building that's going to come in, and everything is going to be absolutely great. And, one thing I'm really excited about is, it was not my world back then, but the Performing Arts Center that's going to be built is going to be absolutely phenomenal. And you were involved in music and drama. I think you were probably Betty's favorite music student.
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I loved her. So who was your favorite teacher? Did you have, as a teacher, did you have any favorites that you enjoyed more?
Yeah, the ones that scared me the most.
And who were they?
They not the ones I taught with. But I just remember, I had a shop teacher I thought was absolutely the greatest in the world. When I went to, until one day was actually after I got out of high school. But he and I became a shop teacher as well. I had a dual major, but anyway, he ran his hand into the joiner, and sort of a gruesome thought. I thought, well, maybe that's not. I'll go to a different way. I'll see if I can blow myself up in a science class.
Well, of course, Dwayne Thorell.
Oh yeah,
he was our shop teacher.
Yeah.
And he had a digit missing. I don't remember though if it was from shop or something else. I think it was something else.
Could be. He probably, I think, maybe jumped off of a tractor or something like that and got his finger caught in there and left it on the tractor.
Yeah, possibly.
Something like that. But he was prone to accidents.
I think sometimes he was an accident, but
he was interesting, and he's still kicking. So
I loved him too. I was telling a story the other day when I was a freshman in high school. I had the opportunity the last 2 games of the year. They moved me up to the varsity football team, and I actually started, which I had no business being on that football field. I didn't think as a freshman, right? And we went to Blair, and we got, it was Larry Roten was the coach at that time, right? And we go to Blair, and the bus is parked on the north end of the football field, and we warm up and we do our thing, and we go out, and the very first kickoff to Blair, they run back for a touchdown. Then we get the ball, and we're running a pitch play, and the quarterback pitches the ball, another freshman, and the ball is intercepted and returned for a touchdown. It got worse from there. And I remember going in the bus at halftime, right? That's where we went for our halftime talk. We all get on the bus in our sweaty uniforms. We're just sitting there. We're getting blitzed. And Roten steps up on the bus. You know how you could grab the handle and come up a couple steps into the doorway, and he leans in there and he goes, "Men, enjoy the halftime show." He walked back out. But then the following week, we won our first game in years to break a 28 or 29 game losing streak. And I got to play a lot in that game too, and it was way, the difference in a loss and a win was tremendous.
Yeah. It's Ashland's been pretty successful for quite a few years.
Most recently, absolutely.
Good talent, good kids, and the talent is still coming. They're getting better and better. The negative is we're getting size-wise, so we're going to be pretty much a B school here before long in all sports.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So they're I think like girls track, they're competing in B this year already. They did in I think maybe in volleyball. So quite a few of the girls' sports were in B this year, and the boys are going to be the same way. And right on the edge of Ashland, you see a little development there. Whitetail Run is going in, and I drove through there yesterday to see how everything was going. There's I think I counted 11 new houses being built right now. So when you look at, say, averaging 2 kids per house to 2.5, well, it's tough to do a half a kid, but you can if you want.
I think I went to school with a couple halves.
Yeah, but anyway, so you start adding 22 kids in a school that was, say 900 to 1,000 students. Pretty soon it has incremental, changes, and proposed development west of the new high school, 180 some houses, but.
Omaha
anyway.
and Lincoln are growing, and they're coming. They're coming.
Yeah, well, just the people, and I don't know where the money's coming from either, because the medium size, what was going to be middle income or lower income, $250,000 for these houses.
Wow.
And so it's one of my things on the city council is try to get equitable housing for people, and. I'm on a board of a Golden Apartments is the name of it. We have 29 units up there, and we have a constant waiting list of like 20 people to get in.
Wow.
And there just isn't that affordable housing for them. And these are usually single people and seniors.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, good luck.
That's a little digression from where we're going.
Well, I want to pose a question to you that I pose to most of my guests. And do you have a favorite Clay memory?
Oh.
And if you have like 10 or 12, that's good too.
It's sort of like, when I did that prayer when you got launched, I'm at a loss for words. No.
Well, we know that's not true.
No. It's, it probably goes back to when you were younger, growing up, little basketball, Saturday morning basketball stuff, at the little miniature gym that used to be in the old school, stuff like that. Those events always, stick in my mind. But probably it's hard for me to pinpoint something in high school. But you becoming who you became, what a success story. It's you just don't see those things, happen very, very often. I always thought about, if I would have given any advice to you, coming out of high school, I would have said, it's sort of like playing golf. When you hit a shot and you don't like it, if you have good friends with you, maybe they'll give you a mulligan. And sometimes, maybe if they're really good friends, you get like a second mulligan. So my advice would have been to you, Clay, if you try something once and you get rejected, try again. If you get rejected a second time, try again. And if you get rejected for the third time, you say, maybe I wasn't supposed to be an astronaut. I'll do something else. I've got a good mind. I'm an engineer. I can become somebody. But so fortunately. You didn't listen to what I would have thought would have been good advice if I would have given it to you.
14 mulligans, it's got to be a record.
Yeah, it could be. That's.
Well, I think that's a great ending to our session here today, in that I've been very adamant in my career as an astronaut to share with people the love I have for my home and my state, but most importantly, the people who built me into the person that I've become. And those people included, first and foremost, mom and dad and brother and sister, but then all of the teachers and coaches that I had throughout my education, elementary all the way through high school, then to college, and the professors I had, graduate school, and on. So I would not be here. I would not have accomplished what I did without people like you, and I want to say thank you very much. Please rate, review, follow, and subscribe, as it helps others find my podcast. Thank you for listening, and a special thank you to my dear friend Chip Davis of Mannheim Steamroller fame for the use of his talents and music.